Bonjour, bienvenue to another French lesson with Anna. And today we're going to talk about le conditionnel, the conditional form. Le conditionnel is what in English we express with the idea of would, okay? And just like everything else in French, you have verbs that are réguliers, regular verbs, and irregular verbs. Just to refresh our minds, if you remember from other lessons, regular verbs are verbs that follow the rule, and the verbs that cannot follow the rule for some reason are irregular verbs. They break the law. So, let's get into it. Pour former le présent du conditionnel, en français, on utilise l'infinitif des verbes et on ajoute les terminaisons de l'imparfait. Whoa, where have we seen this? Okay, so if you said that this is how we form, this first part is how we form the futur simple, you are correct. The futur simple and the conditionnel use the same root, the same radical, okay? So, in order to form the conditional, you look at the infinitive of the verb. That means the verb in its original form, you do not touch it, okay? So it ends in either ER, RE, or IR. Leave it as is. And the difference is that instead of using, like the futur simple, the endings from avoir in the present, this particular one uses the endings from the imparfait. So if you have watched the imparfait and you know how to use the imparfait, this lesson becomes extremely easy. And just like the imparfait, the conditional form has regular and irregular verbs, but the endings never change. It keeps the same endings for both regular and irregular verbs. For regular verbs, there is one little thing we need to remember for the verbs that end in RE. And the reason for that, just like future, if you remember that one, the reason for that is because the E in the RE is silent. It has no accent, it has really no sound to it. And when the E is silent in French, which is this case, we get rid of it, okay? So in this case, because it is une voyelle muette, it's a silent vowel, we don't need it, we get rid of it. But we keep the other ones the way they are. So what does that mean? Well, verbe régulier, the infinitive, you will have the three endings, ER, RE, IR. The E in RE is silent, we get rid of it. If we forgot what the endings from the imparfait are, then here they are again. So for je, AIS, for tu, AIS, for il, singular, elle, singular, and on, AIT, for nous, IONS, for vous, IEZ, and for il and elle plural, AIENT. Okay, let's see what we're going to do. So from the first group, ER, I chose the verb marcher. Marcher means to walk, okay? So if we follow the rule for the conditionnel, we're going to keep the infinitive. So we're going to keep it as is, and here it is, marcher. Ne touche pas, okay? Don't touch it, just leave it the same way. And we're going to use les terminaisons de l'imparfait, so the endings we just saw. You combine them together, and this is what you have, okay? Je marcherai. There's my infinitive in blue, and here are my endings in red, just to follow the formula. Tu marcherais. Il marcherait, so he would walk. Elle marcherait, she would walk. On marcherait, we would walk. Nous marcherions, we would walk. Vous marcheriez, you would walk, the you plural or the formal, respectful way. And then il and elle, il, they masculine, and elle, they feminine. That's the correct way to say it. So, il and elle marcheraient, they would walk. All right? So that takes care of ER verbs. Next, we have RE verbs. And I chose the verb vendre, to sell. So this is the one where we have that silent E at the end that is really not necessary. I underlined it here for you to see. You get rid of it, and you're going to keep the vendre, right? So the V-E-N-D-R, and you're going to add the same endings. They don't change. This is what it looks like. Je vendrais, I would sell. Tu vendrais, you would sell. Il vendrait, he would sell. Elle vendrait, she would sell. On vendrait, and we would sell. Nous also means we. Nous vendrions, so we would sell. Vous, you plural or the respectful way, right? Vous vendriez, you would sell. Il, which is they masculine, ils vendraient, they would sell. And elle, they feminine, they would sell, elle vendrait. There you go. Takes care of the RE group. And we have one more, which is the IR. And so here is the verb choisir, to choose. You keep the same ending. Don't touch the infinitive. Choisir stays the same, and you add the endings from the imparfait. And this is what it looks like. Je choisirais. I would choose. Tu choisirais. You would choose. Il choisirait. He would choose. Elle choisirait. She would choose. And on choisirait. We would choose, right? Then, plural forms. Nous choisirions. Notice there's that re sound at the end. That's what indicates that it is conditionnel, okay? So we would choose. Vous choisiriez. You would choose. Il, that's they masculine. Il choisirait. They would choose. Elle, and that is also they, but the feminine one. Elle choisirait. They would choose. Now, here comes the fun part. Les verbes irréguliers changent le radical, mais les terminaisons sont les mêmes. Okay, that means that irregular verbs will change the root, the radical, but the endings never change. We still have IES, IES, IET, IONS, IEZ, and AIENT. The other good news is that if you saw the video for futur simple and you remember the verbs that are irregular from the futur simple, you then know the ones in the conditionnel. They are the same. Whatever verb is irregular in the futur simple is also irregular in the conditionnel, as they sort of use the same formula to get formed. The only difference is the endings, right? So, just to remember this and go reviewing this stuff is avoir. It ends in IR, right? So if it were regular, it would be avoirait, but it isn't. This word is going to completely change, thus making it irregular. It doesn't follow the rule. So it gets replaced with A, U, R. And then you add the endings. J'aurais, tu aurais, il aurait, etc. Être, our lovely être, which is always irregular, becomes ser, right? S-E-R. So you're going to say serait, 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 etc. Aller looks like an ending, right? Becomes IR, I-R. And then it becomes irait, etc., right? Faire, it kind of sounds the same, faire, right? So F-E-R. Then the verb envoyer, to send, becomes envers. Notice there's a double R here, okay? So E-N-V-E-R-R, okay? Then the verb vouloir, to want, this means, it changes into voudre, okay? Pouvoir, to be able to, or the idea of can. Pour, devoir, to have to, or the idea of must, right? To have to. Devre, savoir, to know something. Sort, okay? S-A-U-R. Venir, to come, becomes viendre. So V-I-E-N-D-R. Je viendrai, tu viendrais, etc. Voir, to see, becomes ver. But notice there's also a double R here. Je verrai, tu verrais. So double R. Courir, to run, also has a double R. Okay? So C-O-U-R-R. And the verb mourir, to die, also has a double R. M-O-U-R-R. Okay? Mour. Now, let me just say something here. The conditionnel, all these verbs translate as would, with the exception of pouvoir and devoir. Pouvoir, okay, is always could. So if you want to say, I could do something, je pourrais faire quelque chose, okay? So the idea of could is always the verb pouvoir, as it is the verb that means to be able to. The verb devoir is always should, okay? I should do this work. je devrais faire ce travail. Okay? So, would for all of the other ones, but if you want to express the idea of could is pouvoir, and the idea of should is devoir. All right? Now, I chose one of them so that I can show you what it changes into, and it was the verb aller, which means to go, right? And if you remember, aller becomes the infinitive, becomes er, it changes to ir. The endings, however, stay the same. So here you go. J'irai, I would go, okay? Tu irais, you would go. Il irait, he would go. Elle irait, she would go. On irait, we would go. Nous irions, be careful, irons, it's will, right? It's the future. So, nous irions, we would go. Vous iriez, you would go. Ils iraient, they would go, masculine. Elles iraient, they would go, feminine. And this is the conditionnel. Hope it helps you form beautiful sentences in the conditionnel. Check also the phrase conditionnel as they use, one of the formulas uses conditionnel, right? Si plus imparfait conditionnel. And if you have any questions, let me know. You'll be able to practice very soon as I will make some exercises available. And let me know if you have other questions and if you would like me to explain other things en ce qui concerne concerning le conditionnel. All right? À la prochaine.